Capital punishment is a serious decision and should not be taken lightly. It's a choice that once it's finished, it cannot be undone. However, I do think it's important and that there is a place for it. So basically, whenever I talk to anyone of my friends or anybody in general, I hear mixed opinions on what's going on. Like either people are for it or completely against it. But just to get an idea of what some of the factors need to be eligible to be the death penalty. Murder was especially heinous, atrocious, cruel, or crime involved torture. The capital offense was one in a series of intentional killings committed by the defendant. The murder was committed in a cold, calculated manner without a pretense of moral or legal jurisdiction. And the victim was killed because of his or her race, gender, religion, nationality, and sexual orientation. And that the murder was in context with illegal drug trade or human trafficking. These are basically just general factors I found in most states that with death penalty. There are many more, such as like Arizona has 17 factors that can cause for death penalty. The main argument that I hear when talking about the death penalty is that it's just too costly, and essentially it's too burdensome on taxpayers. So like studies like in California show that since 1978, the cost of death penalty has been over $4 billion. And over like so the average excuse me. So the study continues to show that the remaining sentences. Studies continue to show that remaining sentences on death row were changed to life without parole. It would result in immediate savings of $170 million per year and $5 billion over the next 20 years. Where basically, since 1978, $1.94 billion were spent on pre-trial and trial costs. $925 million were automatic appeals of state habeas corpus appeals, habeas corpus petitions. $775 million on federal habeas corpus appeal, and $1 billion in costs of incarceration. But like I think this is totally against justice. So in many courthouses we see images of Lady Justice, and Lady Justice essentially she's holding a scale upon which she measures how the strength of cases support and opposition, and she has a blindfold over her eyes that represent objectivity, and that justice is or should be meted out objectivity without fear or favor, regardless of identity, money, and power, or weakness. And I think like justice is really important to society. As John Rawls, which is an American philosopher and leading figure in moral and political philosophy, states that justice is the first virtue of social institutions as truth of systems of thought, and justice is basically a main virtue of our country. So when it comes to the money idea, I think it's completely irrelevant of how much a trial costs. Where I think the average cost of a life without parole trial is $42,000 to $72,000 per trial, while death penalty is $449,000 to $470,000, which is a pretty significant price difference. However, it's like there's many other possibilities when a murderer is left alive. For example, possibility of escape. January 31st, 2001, news broke out that six prisoners escaped a maximum security facility in Alabama. 3 of them were murderers, and during that time span that they were out, they could have basically committed crimes on the innocent public. Another one earlier this year, April 20th, news broke out that 4 inmates escaped Kansas County Jail, one of which was convicted murderer. This essentially proves that even in a maximum security prison, it is possible to escape and continue further crimes. Being behind bars doesn't make you less dangerous, as these examples show that October 22nd, 1983, the federal penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, 2 prison guards were murdered in 2 separate instances by 2 separate inmates, both who were already serving life terms for previously murdering other inmates. 1994, an inmate who's already serving 2 life sentences in Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Center was sentenced to 3 more years after committing 3 prison guard stabbings, stabbing 3 prison guards, excuse me. 1999, a Leeville, Texas prison guard was killed by an inmate already serving a sentence for murder. Essentially, this shows that, actually, I have a quote here. The U.S. Attorney General of Lola Jensen told Senate subcommittee that it is impossible to punish or even deter such prison murders because without a death sentence, a violent life term has free reign to continue to murder as opportunity and his perverse motives dictate. I think this hits the nail on the head. They're saying without, like, once you put a prisoner life without parole, he can do whatever he wants because he has nothing else to live for. It takes away life without parole, takes away all hope. So in 1976, death penalty became constitutional again, and the Supreme Court stated that the death penalty serves 2 principal social purposes: retribution and deterrence. The court did say there is no empirical evidence supporting the idea that the death penalty is a deterrent. It concluded that in the lack of this evidence, that for certain carefully contemplated murders, the possible penalty of death may well enter the cold calculus precedes the decision to act. However, there have been recent studies by universities and there have been many studies saying that there is no deterrent for the death penalty. However, studies by a recent university state otherwise. The conclusions were, according to a 2003 nationwide study by professors of Emory University, each execution deters an average of 18 murders. Speeding up executions would strengthen the deterrent effect for every 2.75 years cut from time spent on death row. 1 murder would be prevented, and on average, death row takes about 15 to 20 years to actually happen. And according to a 2006 study by professors at the University of Houston, the Illinois suspension on execution in 2000 led to 150 additional homicides that were found in 4 years. In conclusion, there should be a death penalty because it not only leads to a deterrent to future murderers, but it also adds an important part of justice. I have a quote here: "If we execute murderers and there is in fact no deterrent effect, we have killed a bunch of murderers. If we fail to execute murderers, and doing so would in fact have deterred other murderers, we have allowed killing a bunch of innocent victims. I would much rather risk the former. This to me is not a tough call." Essentially, just says that the risk is too high not to try and deter murderers from committing these crimes. Questions?
Is it legal in New York?
No.
No. So you're saying?
I found this in general studies throughout the United States. Like,
so you.
You might have covered it on the last slide about the study, but what's the average amount of time spent on death row?
It's about 15 to 20 years, depending on which state. Like California, I believe, is 20.
And that's just like going through the whole appeals process and everything.
Exactly.
Were there discussions in what you researched with regard to the new introduction of DNA evidence specifically?
Oh yeah, that's why many of the cases now are actually more accurate, and because the technology for DNA is so much more up to date. Well, in recent years, there's actually been people on death row who have been released because of DNA evidence, which I think is kind of like upsetting that there could have been a major mistake in killing an innocent, but I also think it strengthens the fact that there could be better evidence to convict murderers today.
Do you happen to have the name of that study from 2003?
I do not, but I'll probably get it to you later.